Pilgrimage is a pre-code drama from 1933. Henrietta Crossman plays the overprotective mom of Norman Foster. Foster strikes up a relationship with a local girl, played by Heather Angel, and their romance makes Crossman uneasy. But then World War I hits, and Crossman convinces Foster to go fight overseas, hoping that their separation will dissolve the romance between them. The film was directed by John Ford, and although it wasn't his first sound film, this was the first one where it seems like he finally got the hang of the new technology. He uses it less as a gimmicky device and more like a tool to tell the story properly. An example of this is Ford's use of the score. By 1933, films finally started to integrate soundtracks throughout their entire running time. Before that, films were often littered with awkward pauses. This wasn't a major issue for audiences back then, but it makes a lot of early sound films feel archaic to many modern viewers. The score helps to elevate every scene it's in. It never feels overused. With that being said though, there are some powerful moments of silence. Ford uses them to great effect. Some of the best parts in this film are when we fixate on characters' expressions. Each performer does an impressive job carrying the mood of these scenes, which allows us to feel greater empathy. At times they convey a sense of glee, and at others they fill us with haunting sorrow. Probably the greatest moment in the film comes when Heather Angel gives Crossman flowers. The camera lingers on Crossman's hands as she grabs them in silence. The movement of her arm is enough to tell us everything we need to know. It's one of the iconic moments of the film. Most of the movie was shot on sound stages, but it never feels confined. There's some spectacular framing to the outdoor scenes that give the film a grander scale. It helps make the story feel more intimate. Like, we get a sense that there's this great big world to explore, populated by lots of people, but we're focusing on a select group of characters who are just trying to navigate their problems. And that's honestly just kind of a basic summary of what the world is. A large group of people all trying to deal with different obstacles. Another thing I love about this film is that you can see the silent film influences. I have an unfounded theory that the film was shot on reused sets from F.W. Murnau's Sunrise, specifically the countryside sets. The sets in both films have a melancholy to them that I find strikingly similar. Murnau filmed Sunrise on the sound stages at Fox in 1927, and Ford filmed Pilgrimage at Fox in 1933, so there is a chance that Fox kept the same sets around for all those years. But Sunrise was also a very influential film back then, so it could just be that Ford took note of Murnau's techniques. The entire cast does a great job, but the person who steals the show is Henrietta Crossman. She is spectacular. She breathes new life into what could have been a tired stereotype of a character. Yes, she's an overprotective mom, but Crossman brings some dimension to her. They never outwardly say what happened to the husband, but you can tell his absence has torn her up emotionally. It's clear Crossman's devotion to her son is an extension of her husband. When she sees that her boy is interested in starting a life with a woman, she flashes back to that time. With minimal effort, Crossman allows the audience to see that when she yells at her son, her anger isn't directed towards him. It feels like a repressed emotional memory resurfacing. She never comes off as unsympathetic, just as misunderstood. She doesn't feel comfortable opening up about her vulnerabilities because of her past, and that's her greatest flaw. To the characters, she's an old biddy, but to us, she's someone that's been hurt too much to come to terms with reality. Henrietta Crossman was born September 6th, 1861? Oh my gosh, that's 5 months before the Civil War started. Anyway, she made her acting debut on Broadway in 1883. She starred in Barley Campbell's The White Slave. She spent most of her career starring in period pieces. Some of her greatest successes were the original 1900 run of Mistress Nell and the original 1903 run of Sweet Kitty Bel Airs. In the mid-1910s and the 1920s, she appeared in a few silent films, but never seemed to want to make a career out of it. Her husband, Maurice Campbell, actually had a short career as a silent film director. It looks like she just enjoyed experimenting with the medium, but she preferred to stay on stage. I can see why, because just scrolling through her work on Internet Broadway Database, it looks like she was a highly prolific actress. But when the movies started to talk, Crossman decided to give films another chance. Part of the reasoning was due to the fact that she was in her 70s and was struggling to find meaty roles on stage. In film, almost all her parts were supporting roles, but Pilgrimage was a rare exception. She retired from acting in 1936 and would pass away in 1944. She was 83 years old. Crossman lived in a seldom talked about era of stage play legends, and to see a performance of hers captured on film is something to be in awe of. So if you want to see a performance of one of the lost legends of Broadway, or see John Ford's first great sound film, then I highly recommend Pilgrimage.